the process is we approve a budget in June, and within that budget, we have to say how much we're gonna receive in property taxes. So we do that in June. Well, we don't receive notice of our assessed valuation until the end of July, which is one of the key components, and then we don't set our tax rate until August, which is the second key component. So, this is what we're doing tonight. In the packet was the auditor's forms. So the process is, once we get the assessed valuations, we fill out the forms, we submit those to the state auditor's office, they review them, send them back and say, yes, we agree with your net calculations and these numbers. So that has been done, we've received them back from the state auditor's office. And then also in the packet are the estimate of required local taxes. And so once this is approved, we will hand deliver this to both county clerk's offices, because the penalty for not getting that done by September 1st is you collect 0 property taxes. So that would be almost $50 million we wouldn't collect if we didn't get that to them by September 1st. So I will be hand delivering that tomorrow.
I was gonna ask, you're gonna hand carry this?
I do, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, normally this is pretty straightforward for the most part. We have a little complexity with our Proxy Rollback that we do. But this is the final year of rolling in the tax rate increase that was voted in April 2017. So we're going all the way back to April 4th, 2017 this is the final step of that. So we had 2 elections, Proposition J, which authorized $130 million of general obligation bonds. That passed with 62% approval, and that debt service levy increase went into effect in 2017. Then we had Proposition C, which was the increase of the operating levy. We had 60% approval. 25 cents of that was needed to operate the second high school. Well, obviously we didn't need to tax people 25 cents while we were building the high school. So we've been doing a voluntary rollback, and just through other complexities, even though the building was open and we were operating it last year, we're not rolling in the full amount until this year. And so we phased in the first 20 cents in 2017, we phased in 15 cents in 2018, and this is the final phase in of that levy that was approved in April 2017. So going through all that, when you pass an operating tax increase, there is a calculation that they go through, and this is a copy of what we filed in 2017 with the state auditor's office, and this is what has set our tax rate ceiling since that time. So just going through the numbers, the $3.7642, that was our operating levy prior to the increase. Then filling out the form showing that the voters approved 42 cents, so that would be 4.2142. So this is all part of the Hancock Amendment. So multiply that 4.2 times the assessed valuation of the prior year, when it was 3.7642, that would equal $52,743,000. Then you're entitled to up 2.1%, not more than 2.1%, but you're entitled to 2.1% growth. So we were entitled to an additional $1.1 million. So the new amount that we're allowed based on that voter approved increase is $53,851,000. Well, if our assessed valuation would have went up exactly 2.1%, this number would have grown it would have stayed at 4.2142. But because it didn't grow by 2.1%, it actually went up by 52 cents. So and the way the Hancock Amendment works, it works in both ways. So if the assessed valuation would have grown by 4%, we wouldn't have been able to levy 45 cents, it would have been 38 or 39 cents. So that is always what the formula does when you pass an operating increase. And so we've been operating under the 4.2849 operating ceiling since 2017. So once you have your voter approved ceiling, then we have a proxy rollback. So This was passed, I believe it was in 1982, it was a statewide initiative that was a 1% sales tax, and half of that money went as new money to schools, and the other half went as a as a rollback of the property tax. Since then, so there are over 520 districts, less than 40 districts still do this rollback, and we were one of those less than 40 districts. And so the sales tax has an inverse relationship with our property tax. So if sales taxes increase, that means the rollback goes up, which means our property tax goes down. And the reverse is true, so if sales taxes decrease, the rollback goes down, which means our property taxes go up. And I tell you that because that happened during the global financial crisis, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through the slides. So, if you see during our history, I'm going back to 2008, just because that's prior to the global financial crisis, our Proxy Rollback is this outside column, was about 29 cents. So you basically take your Proxy revenue divided by 2, because it's half, divided by your assessed valuation, and there are a couple other factors in there, but that's generally what you do. So it's 29 cents. You can see that this Prop C sales tax revenue went down statewide. Our assessed valuation didn't go down, it went up marginally. So our rollback went down, which means the amount we could tax went up. And then it went down a little bit, but so it's gradually gained since then. It got to almost 33 cents, and now it's been at just under 32 cents the last couple of years. But so there's a little bit of play in our tax rate calculation that most districts don't have that could cause our tax rate to go up or down. So just showing 2016, this was the year before Proposition C, so this is a little complicated. Our proposition that we put towards our local voters was also called Proposition C. So there's two different Proposition Cs, but the operating tax increase that we passed. So this was 2016, the first year. You can see our ceiling went to 4.2849. We did the Prop C rollback, so this is the amount we could have levied in 2017, but we did a 32-cent voluntary rollback and only levied 364. And then the next year, we went through the same thing. You can see the ceiling hasn't changed the last 4 years. We've done our Prop C rollback. Then this is the amount we had the authority to levy. We've done a voluntary rollback the last 2 years of 17.5 cents and levied 379. And now this year we are finally rolling on the last piece of the operating levy tax increase. And going forward, really the only play should be this Prop C rollback. And then if we have a large reassessment, the ceiling could come down. But going forward, this is what the rate should be going forward. So the other thing that's in play, I said if we have a large reassessment every odd numbered year, the assessor is to look at all the property that's existing on the books currently and decide if that has gone up or down in value. And so normally if you're in a normal environment where property values are rising, you should see a larger increase in reassessment years, and in those years we're restricted to only having the growth of the CPI. So that's when you could see your tax rate ceiling go down. But this is an even numbered year. This is 2020, so it is a non-reassessment year. So the only changes in our assessed valuation should come from new construction, and then every year changes in personal property. So if the economy is going well, you see people buying new boats and cars and equipment for their businesses. Those are the changes that you would see.
Jason, did they reevaluate us in 2019 based on the addition of Capital City?
So no, it doesn't have anything to do with our buildings. So this
okay.
is, they should come to your house and say, in 2017, we said your house is worth X. Now in 2019, we think your house is worth X plus or minus, depending on what the market is.
All new construction.
But in the reassessment, they should look at everything that's already existing and then add new construction.
All right,
correct.
thank you.
Right. So that's
not, I mean, that's not on us, right? That's up to the county assessor whether he does that or not.
that's correct.
Right. I understand that.
Right. So that's the whole operating levy piece. And so then we have the debt service levy. It's a whole different calculation. It's Form C in the packet that you have from the state auditor's form. And it's a much simpler form. It just says how much do you need to pay principal and interest on your general obligation debt in the next calendar year? Because remember, we're setting this levy to get money and billed in December, we'll receive it in January. So what do we need to, and we're not gonna get any more money in the debt service fund until next January. So what do we need to pay principal and interest in March and September when we have our payments? So we go through and say, what are our principal and interest payments? Reasonable reserves, which is actually one extra year of payments, and then allows for cost of collections, because the assessor keeps some of our money, the collector keeps some of our money so that they can do their jobs. And then unfortunately, some people don't pay. So then you say, all right, how much revenue did we need? So for us, it was $12,940,000 divided by your assessed valuation. So the formula says we need 95 cents for our debt service fund. We're working with Stiefel and Lorenzo. We're confident that we have our amortization schedule and we only need 90.28 cents to pay our debt. And so that's what we told taxpayers we would do, so that's all we're levying. So we do a voluntary rollback of, it's just under 5 cents.
Hey, Jason, what do we do about that gap between what we expect the assessed valuation payment to be, and you mentioned the bad debt, those that don't pay? What gap is that, and is it just a percentage that we already built into the formula?
Yeah, and so I did misspeak. The bad debt isn't really in this part, but we do account for that in our amortization schedule. So when we build the schedule, we say, here's where we expect our assessed valuation to grow over the next 20 years. Here's what we know our principal and interest payments are, and then what's our historical collection rate. So yeah, we just assume similar to history. So then putting it all together, and for a very long history, you can see that we've had a very stable, and as we talked about during the campaign, it was very low total tax rate compared to others in the state. And so I put some asterisks here because this is an interesting time in history. During the global financial crisis, I showed you that the Proxy Rollback went down, so our tax rate ceiling went up. We went ahead and levied that at that time and rolled back our debt service fund. At that time, we were receiving a significant amount of federal stimulus money, and so we were able to move money around to do that at that time. So and then showing the final, now we're at 4.86. And then this is the final slide, just showing a comparison to last year. So it is 17.5 cents higher than last year, and so that's 17.5 cents just to show how much that would be to a taxpayer is $50.10 per year for a $150,000 house. So happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Jason?
I mean, it's just important, I think, to point out, and hopefully people understand that we have done voluntary rollbacks multiple times over the last 2 years where we could have left it at a level that's higher and collected higher taxes, but we voluntarily chose to step it down a notch to go with our value of stewardship, right? So hopefully people understand that that's been our practice historically.
So, this needs to be approved tonight?
Yes, please.
All right.
So moved.
Second.
A motion to approve by Ken Emlin, second by Brad Bates. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the approval of 2021 tax rates signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. The ayes have it. The tax rate has been approved 2021. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Moving on